it's late here and there. I hope you don't mind. Often it happens because of the technical issues. We are also the producers, we're the technicians, we're the presenters, we're the brain behind the whole program, we're the source of information, we're doing everything. It's not easy. Of course, it is not easy because we're doing it from our own home. We can't get a technician from outside. And our son is too young to yet take over the entire production. How are you anyway? I've been slightly flustered. How are you, Hannah? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our living room where we do this show from. I am good this morning. Alhamdulillah, I had a good night's sleep. So
good. I'm glad you had a good night's sleep. I didn't.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that we keep, it comes with age, I think. It's that we don't sleep as well as we used to. And
comes with age. I'm not that old.
Yeah, well, no, you're not old, but, still sleeping is difficult. Anyway, welcome to the Barefoot Marriage Show, a conversation that we have been having for a number of weeks now on different topics. And today, actually, we picked extended families.
Which is an extension of last week's program.
Yes, because we got a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and people still have a lot of things to say about extended families. So please do share with us your thoughts, your questions, your requests. We will see some of you. Good morning, Halima Abdurrahman. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being with us. So send us your questions. We are talking about extended families today, and hopefully from a different angle that you might not have heard before. And this is something that we fundamentally disagree with, Ajma, so it probably will be an interesting conversation about.
I don't think we disagree, but I do want to finish the in-laws conversation.
Which particular part?
I think we haven't finished about how do we create a space that can be safe for both, all parties, really. So there is a section called Do's and Don'ts of in-laws.
And by the way, those of you who are joining us now, this is a conversation from and inspired by Ajmal's latest book, 10 Steps to Getting Married and Staying Married. We have been going through different chapters, different topics of it. So if you do have the book, please take it out and go on to page 332. If you don't have the book, go on our website and you can purchase it
right now,
and you will get it next week, inshallah. So we started talking about in-laws, and you had lots of questions.
Oh my God! Last week was a complete full-on, really. A lot of people had lots of views. But do's and don'ts of in-laws. I thought this is a good checklist, or not a checklist, but it's a good list to go through. Let me start. Do's and don'ts. If you do one, I do one. Hopefully that will work.
Okay.
So do. Do. Understand how your spouse relates to his or her father, parents, mother, whoever is in the family. Understand how your spouse relates to his or her parents. It's very important.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, that our relationship with our parents fundamentally informs our relationship with our in-laws.
So therefore, if I understand the way you are relating to your parents, I'll most likely understand you. And we'll most likely have a better relationship. If I don't understand how you're relating to your parents, why are your parents so important? So I have a couple who have been arguing about in-laws, and one day the husband actually broke down and said to his wife, you don't understand what it means. For me to leave my mother, or for me to leave her on her own and not be around her in the sense of in the same city, in the same area, it's like leaving my mother exposed to harm's way. My father used to be very abusive. My father did this to my mother, etc., etc. So the reason why I cling on to the fact that I need to be around my mother is because of that fear. And the wife turned around and said, I'm really sorry. I've been pushing you too much. I didn't realize it was so sore for you that your father was physically abusive towards your mother, and you don't want that to ever happen again. So she said, okay, I'll relent. I will not argue about this ever again. We stay in the same city. No problem. I get it. But because you didn't tell me, I didn't understand. So it's about relating to your partner's way, your spouse's way of relating to his or her parents. Number one. So that's do. What's the don't?
The don't. Don't assume that the family relationship of your in-laws will resemble the one in your family. This is very important, because when we have an assumption that our own household experience, how we grew up, what we did, how we experienced being a child and in that parent-child relationship, we assume that our in-laws are going to be treating us the same way. Whereas what is very interesting about this is it doesn't matter what culture you come from, doesn't matter what background. You could be from the same culture or from completely different cultures. The assumption that family will be the same in an in-law setup it could be quite damaging for relationships, and we need to think outside of that realm of how it is, what is the reality, and always deal with case by case, when it comes to issues to do with in-laws.
So an example, my family, we're a big family. We are 6 of us, 6 brothers and sisters, my parents, and of course my uncle, my auntie. When we were growing up, we were not living in each other's houses, but we would go and visit each other very often. Every weekend we would be in one of our uncle's houses, a maternal or paternal uncle, or they would come to us. It was a regular visit we made, and we enjoyed it. It was very nice. We had that relationship building from the day we were very little. Back in the countries where my parents come from, Bangladesh, they all live in a massive house in one amazingly big, large plot. Each of them have their own space, but it's like a small village within a village. So that's the setup I come from. Whereas my wife comes from a very small nucleus family, mom and dad and 2 children. Everyone else lives their own life, and nobody actually has that kind of an extended connection. So if I impose mine on you and you impose yours on me, it's not going to work. We both have to accept one another's right to have that kind of an upbringing and experience and expectations, no problem. But what I don't want to do is invalidate hers, and she should not invalidate mine. That invalidation is where the resentment and argument starts. When you say, okay, I accept the way you are. In fact, I'm happy the way you are, alhamdulillah. That's when you actually have normalized your husband, your wife's expectations of in-laws, your parents, his parents. But the moment you start fighting, you cause a rift that's not worth it. By the way, we're not seeing anyone saying anything today. Does it mean people can't hear us? Does it mean people can't listen to us? Or you can't see us? Is our volume system working today? Some of you have been complaining about the sound system before. I did choose the microphone source, I hope, correctly this time.
Let us know.
So
how
give
you
us
can
your
hear
feedback,
us.
inshallah. Faisal Muhammad said what? Mahmoud says what?
This is an excellent book. I will be recommending it to anyone who is looking to getting married. I have been married for over 18 years with its ups and downs. We are very happy, alhamdulillah. I wish I read this before I got married. Could have avoided many sour situations.
Thank you, Faisal.
So much. Thank you. Very kind of you.
Very beautiful, really.
Nice, lovely. And 18 years of experience. Well,
Well, we want to know more from your experience.
Yes, please do. Do share with us.
Write to us. So there you go. Buy this book, please, if you don't mind. Shamsun Nahar says, Assalamu alaikum. I can hear
you both.
Very good.
Thank you.
I can't even see properly today.
I know it's working. So the sound is working. Let's go to the next one.
Please,
so
go ahead.
Next, do.
Take time to get to know your in-laws. If you are separated by distance, contact each other regularly. That's a hard one.
That's your thing because your mother-in-law is not in the country. So.
Yes, I know. Take your
and
time.
And your brother-in-law isn't around.
Take your time. This is one of my failures, perhaps, but not because I don't want to. It's something that you have to consciously do. And I put my hand up to say that I don't do enough of it. I should be. But every time I see you on the phone, to your mum, which is almost every day, which is wonderful. I have no problem with that. Even if you speak to your mum every day regularly, it's not a complaint. I would pause and say salam and hello to her, and I'll ask you how your mum is, how your brother is. I'd make a conscious effort of making that question and consciously asking, not because I'm ticking a box, but because I'm seriously worried and concerned about their well-being. I have a language barrier. I don't speak Hungarian, yes. My mother-in-law doesn't speak much English. We do have a getting on particularly high and by type of a conversation, but that's not good enough. We need to still try our best to make some sort of an effort. But, credit to you. You actually try your best to keep in touch with my mum.
With your whole family, actually.
Yeah, I know, which is wonderful. Thank you. That's a very good nature that you have. But I'm not going maliciously out of my way not to keep in touch. Where I'm failing is I'm not being conscious enough to keep in touch. There are 2 different sides to it. If I maliciously excluded them from our life, that would be absolutely immoral.
Of course.
Whereas I'm failing as a human being in not remembering, getting busy and drowned with work and priorities, that failure needs to be addressed. I agree. I 100% agree. But I'm not maliciously doing it, and so don't maliciously go out of your way to exclude your in-laws. Make some sort of a relationship with them.
And there's a don't on
please.
The other side. Don't take offense easily. You may simply not understand the family dynamics just yet. And I can tell you, I have been married for 19 years, end of this month.
You have been married? What about me?
Yeah, well, we have been married for 19 years, and I still don't understand a lot of dynamics. And I think it's one of those things that we have to be very conscious of, that when you accuse, when you scream and shout that it's working, not working, I can't be with my in-laws, we need to think about, is there something I don't actually understand about this family dynamics? And just imagine that I have been independent from the age of 17. I haven't lived with my brother or with my parents. I moved out. I was in boarding school from the age of 14 until 18, then university, independently standing on my feet from the age of 17. So I don't actually have that family experience since the age of 14, since I left.
So does it mean your lack of family experience could be your barrier for experiencing somebody else's family experience?
Well, completely. Completely. But also there is this idea, which I know a lot of convert sisters have, that independence comes with its own baggage. In being independent and then suddenly being taken into a family where there are 5 brother and sister-in-laws, and there is mom and dad and all their uncles, and covering the entire East London. It's quite an undertaking for someone who is not used to the idea of their time being molded by other things than whatever they have to do.
Mind you, I also was brought up in a boarding school. I went to a boarding school from the age of 7 till 14, so I didn't live with the family. But the concept of family never went away. So extended family or extended relationship was part and parcel of my upbringing. That's where our differences are, but it's about embracing the difference. It's about learning how to cope with the difference and not allowing your prejudice, your own fear and your own experience to derail a better future, perhaps, a more inclusive one that could bring more happiness into your life. Don't exclude it. Don't prejudice a potential for the future. Next, let's go to the next one. Check your partner
With your partner.
check with your partner about family customs and traditions. What do they like to eat? What's their sense of humor like? Can you talk about politics or religion in front of them? What kind of gifts do they expect? I know this one is very important because, for example, when I got married to you, what I got very surprised by is some of your cultural quirks. So, for example, you pick up the phone and you say "see ya," and you put the phone down and you say hello.
Only Hungarians would understand this.
Now,
I'm sure there are some Hungarians watching
if
too.
you're watching this program, I was astonished. Why are you picking up the phone and saying "see ya" to somebody and you're putting down the phone and saying hello? I didn't understand. It took me a long time to understand. It's a cultural quirk that they have. Nothing to do with being against me. Or perhaps our food. When my wife is not feeling too well, she likes to have
Don't give out all the secrets what I eat.
she likes to eat spinach with cream. I wouldn't touch that stuff, but she loves it because that's her comfort food. My comfort food, on the other hand, would be the food that my mother gave me. In Bengali, we have a dish called khichdi. I love that food when I'm not feeling too well. It's a heartwarming food. One of my all-time favorite food is lentils because I lived in a boarding school. Lentil was a daily staple for me. Understanding these things, my wife likes cheese and bread with some tomatoes and onion.
Who doesn't like cheese and bread?
Onions and tomatoes?
I do.
In fact, bread with onion, that's what you have sometimes without any cheese.
Yeah, and then we also have goose fat and all those things that, again, only Hungarians will understand. But these are some of the quirky things that obviously over time we had to kind of concede.
You had to.
I only eat those things when you are not around, by
That's
the way.
okay. You can eat anytime you like.
When my husband is traveling and he's off for a couple of days, and I just indulge in all the Hungarian food that I can.
No, but that's not true. I love Hungarian food.
Generally, the cooked food that you like my mom's cooking, I think. I don't think generally Hungarian food would be your favorite, but certain dishes, because my mother makes it really well, so you're very comfortable with that.
Very kind woman. And you don't like, for example, the stinky
the shutki I can't stand.
The smelly fish.
Funny
thing is, you don't like smelly fish coming from Bangladeshi background, but you like smelly fish coming from Spanish background. It's the same thing.
Which one? The bacalao.
It's exactly
no, this is a forever argument. I'm not going into that. This is forever argument between whether bacalao and shutki even can be mentioned on the same page. Anyway, I'm going to don't.
We're talking about all of these things so that you get to know each other. We can talk about politics, we can talk about religion, we can talk about food. We have a way of talking, right? So check with your partner if you can, if it's not a no-go area. And between a husband and a wife, there should be no place for a no-go area. You should be able to talk about everything. Ultimately, we're talking about in-laws and extended families. Have that conversation with your spouse immediately.
I want to talk a little bit about religion in this one, because I think in extended families there is an issue often that comes up through parenting. It comes up from other situations where religion is actually a place of conflict. People practice religion in a different way. People are at different levels. And when we are in an extended family scenario, it's actually quite difficult to manage. one person would be sticking to particular ways of doing things or practicing Islam, or there are people who are non-Muslims who come to the family as part of becoming part of the family, and suddenly there is an imposition, there's an exposure to things. And some of these things are religious, but a lot of the things is cultural. And I remember when I was getting married, I was told I cannot wear red because it's not something that the Bangladeshi family, a traditional Bangladeshi family would allow or feel comfortable with, because red is the celebration color for marriages and weddings, and I shouldn't be wearing it on the street because it attracts too much attention. So all sorts of things that were partially, if we are not careful, they can become a point of contention and a point of argument. I remember your father was really shocked when I turned up in a red top, which I was very proud of because I made it. I learned how to stitch on a machine for my mother-in-law, and I made this really lovely red top, which I was very proud of. That was my first ever piece that I could write. So I put it on, and your father was terrified. He looked at me and gone, why are you wearing red? So some of these things, religion as an issue it's a very sensitive one. I think in extended families, because you could be living. So when we talk about extended family, are we talking about extended family in general, or are we talking about extended families who live together? Because the dynamics are very different. If you are not living together, talking about religion that doesn't affect your daily practice is different. If you are stuck in the same house and you practice Islam in different ways, then there are other different questions and conversations you need to be having to create a dynamic that works for everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm just staring at the screen because somebody said, Zaid said, Assalamu alaikum, sound is very low at the moment, struggling to hear you. Zaid, everyone else is saying sound is very good, so I think you just need to put your volume up.
So maybe on your side the
we've got others saying, Ihsan Usman, Assalamu alaikum. Najakhtar says sound is clear. Rumana says a massive smile.
Assalamu alaikum.
And Khandakar Kabiruddin says excellent. Thank you very much. So, brothers and sisters, not just a religion between family, extended families, but religion within the family setting nowadays is causing a lot of trouble.
That's true.
Family, children, husband and wife, father and mother and their children have cases where people have been in touch, their children have left Islam, their children have become agnostic, atheists, their children are marrying into non-Muslim families. What do? That in itself is a separate discussion. But today, what we are saying is nothing for a family should be out of bounds when it comes to conversation. That's the only way you can build a solid foundation for a good relationship. I think you should read the next, which is don't.
Yes, don't ever criticize your spouse's family. Rather, ask for explanation of things you don't understand. Being critical of your in-laws will not get you closer to your spouse. I also think while it's about the in-laws section, it's the same with our own families. Being critical of our own brothers and sisters and how we look at our own family is always an expansion of the horizon, that how we see them and how we accommodate. And then you take a stand, of course. You have to, certain things you have to take a stand on, and that needs to be also accommodated within the family setting.
Sometimes it works when you are younger and a baby. Little kids, teenagers, being very, very critical of each other. That's perhaps how you relate to each other. But when you have grown up and become adult, being critical is not the way to do, even if it's your brother or your sister or your children. You need to be appraising people constructively. You need to give them constructive feedback, but kindly. You need to be with them when they're down, and you need to hold their hands if they want to be picked up. All of these things are part and parcel of how we should go. But do not criticize your in-laws. Simple equation. Never say a word of rudeness, criticism, or a swear word or an abusive term about your in-laws. If you can't speak the truth of your in-laws in a constructive and positive way, in other words, if you have nothing good to say about them, keep your mouth shut. Does that work for you?
Yeah, sure.
It works for me. I have not said anything about your mum ever in my life.
I don't think any of us are,
in that way.
We are not. I don't think we go out of our way. We feel irritated sometimes. I know I do about some things that I don't understand about your family, but it doesn't mean that I would go out of my way to hurt or be vengeful or do.
But you don't say negative things. Fine, alhamdulillah. Why do you need to say anything negative about my parents, and why do I need to say anything negative about yours? You will realize it yourself, and you will say that to me. You will talk about your mum in a negative way when you're not happy with her. Do I say the same? No, I just stay quiet and I listen to you. No problem. I sometimes say you need to deal with it, but that's all you need to do. Just a golden rule, brothers and sisters. If you can't say positive things about your in-laws, keep your mouth shut. Simple. Okay, next one. Be polite and friendly. Be your most charming person or around your in-laws. Why do you know? Smile often, say please and thank you, show them that you care. Yes, mother-in-law is a very precious relationship. I have a very good high-end, high-energy, high-octane, as I call it, relationship with your mom. I'm always trying to joke and laugh. Sometimes my laugh and joke can be quite irritating, but I do it deliberately because I want to make sure my mother-in-law feels very special. I want her to know that even if she was, I've known her for 20 years now, she still is the same mother-in-law that I got married to, her daughter to, on the first day, and I still cherish her and respect her. My father-in-law has passed away, so I'm talking about my mother-in-law, but if my father-in-law was here, I'll do the same thing. Be charming, be kind, be generous with them. I don't see a reason why you can't be.
You know, I always think about this, that two things come to my mind. One is that it's so easy to criticize. So the very act of criticism and looking out to the other side, looking at somebody, pointing fingers and say, oh, well, you do this wrong, this is difficult, I can't handle, this is horrible what you are doing. Criticism in itself is a detachment of who you are. So when you criticize, you are coming from that your place, you're not in your peace, you're not at peace with yourself when you can only see criticism. I think that's a very important, for me, it's a very important point.
You mean criticism if somebody was to give it to you?
No, if I'm criticizing, that means I am spending too much time focusing on someone else. And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya said, you point a finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So let's just spend more time. If we spend that amount of time that we use for criticizing for self-development, the 3 fingers that we are taking into account, I think we would be better off. We would have a different understanding, because when you self-reflect, you see that beyond every criticism you make to another person, there is a lack in you, there is a fear in you, there's an insecurity in you, and spending time on criticizing instead of fixing those is not going to get you any results.
Yeah. I don't understand why people are so fixated on criticism. Often wives say to me, oh, my wife is being very critical, my husband is being very critical, or the husband says to me, my wife is being very critical to me. Why are you being so critical? That's the bottom line. Even with your in-laws or your families or relatives, the more criticism you give about other people, the more you push them away. People don't like people who are critical. People like constructive feedback, yes, but in a private space, there is a time and space for everything. If you keep on criticizing somebody, they will no longer love you, respect you, honor you, or be in your company. They don't want to be in your company because it's negative. There is no positive energy to it.
But also think about it. Did you grow up being criticized all the time?
Which is possibly the case.
If you were, then that means you will be carrying on unconsciously that idea that criticism is the only way to be. If your mother or father was always critical of you or critical of everything else around you, you, from the age you were born, you soaked up that mindset of being critical of anything and everyone around you.
Nothing is good. Nothing is good enough, as the saying goes. Some more messages. Uzma Kazi has asked an important question. How important is it to maintain maternal ties while navigating new ones in the in-laws? Absolutely essential. We said it last week. Worshipping Allah is essential. The second most important thing after being good to Allah is being good to our parents. And part of our being good to our parents is also to be good to our in-laws, because our in-laws means our wife or husband's parents. So being good to everybody. So maintaining your parents' relationship and yourself and your in-laws' relationship, navigating them in a balanced way is essential. Remember that. Don't ever sacrifice on it. Do you want to read the next one?
Yes, a very, very interesting question. How do you deal with parents feeding 2-year-old children junk food and refuses to listen no matter what method you use? Try to explain again. Also giving children mobile phones. This is in a mixed household.
We want to talk about children another time, right? Or have we done the children
We
section?
have done a parenting one, but this is a very interesting point because it's to do with mixed household, extended family scenarios. So this for me, this is a very big deal, because I remember when our children were born, I was hell bent on putting them to sleep at certain time. I did say to my brother-in-laws not to come after a certain time, and one time your brother came after that time and he wanted to wake up my daughter, and he did. Oh, I just want to play with her. So boundaries is the issue here I'm talking about. At the end of the day, you as a parent are responsible for your child's well-being. Junk food, mobile phones, it's not good for the spirit, it's not good for the teeth, it's not good for the soul, it's not good for the mind. Children who are on phones, iPads, laptops, whatever they are doing, at that young age, their reasoning capacity. I mean, we didn't even allow children to watch TV at the beginning, especially with my daughter when she was born. Until a certain age, we took her out. It was nature, it was activities, and you can see the difference between, you know, they never watch these silly TVs that, you know, that they literally, it's a damage to the brain for the child. So as a parent in a mixed household, you have to make an absolute stand, because this is not just damaging your relationship, but it's damaging the child.
Yeah, you have to tell your
It's a
in-laws.
fundamental, it's a non-negotiable when it comes to children.
We did tell our mum, for example, mum and dad both, that please don't feed our kids any spicy food, any greasy food, or any salty food, at least for the first 6 to 8 months of their life. Slowly we'll introduce this, but they don't need junk food in their life. I remember I was in Dubai airport once, and I saw a mother taking out a bottle of Coke from her baby's pram, and taking a baby bottle and filling it up, and then giving the bottle of Coke to the 2-year-old to drink. I literally jumped at the woman. I went up to her and I said to her, "What are you doing?" She goes to me, "What do you mean?" So I told her that you're feeding your child with poison, Coca-Cola. This child's internal system is going to be messed up. She was not bothered. She just told me to get lost. Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? Brothers and sisters, this is so wrong. A child is born with innocence, called fitra, innocence of haya, called shame, bashfulness within them, an innate nature to be good, including their digestive system, their immune system. And if you feed it junk, what do? You destroy their innate immune system that Allah has given by this junk food. Junk food includes feeding the children at the wrong time, and 10 sets of hands feeding the same child over the same period of time, when one dinner, one meal would have been sufficient. I've seen it in many households. Parents feed, uncles feed, grandparents feed, relatives who come from outside feed. This child eats, and associates life with junk food and binge eating. That's your fault. And the other problem I have also seen is parents as well as the in-laws with a bowl of food on their hand, running behind the children and shoving it down the throat of the child. Again, wrong, completely wrong. Don't do that. If parents have given you boundary, and I say this to extended families, give your in-laws boundaries. No more food after 7 o'clock. Let them go to sleep. No more television after certain hours. Limit it. Agree to some boundaries together with your in-laws, with your extended families. Let everyone know the boundaries.
So what is important about this is that people overstep boundaries not because they are bad people.
They don't know.
It's because we don't enforce them. So they will overstep and they will say, "Oh, it's okay, just a bit of this, a bit of that." But actually, if you keep saying, "No, this is a non-negotiable for me," you do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, people get the message. My mother had very similar things. Now, I remember my daughter as well, but I didn't give sugar to my daughter. She still laughs at it because her first dessert was an avocado. And until today, she still doesn't like sugar and chocolate. She doesn't have a sweet tooth. And the interesting part is when you are living with other people, you are developing a culture of food, appreciation for food, mindful eating. You know, what is the quantity? What is the quality? How do you relate to food is all about that family setup. Some of the things that we do as extended family doesn't work because it's either too much or too spicy or too this or too that or wrong timing. Or I, for example, don't like eating late. I can't sleep if I eat too late. So
it's also unhealthy.
Your food culture, you are responsible for your food culture.
Do you know some people associate food with prayers? And you need to understand the cultural quirk here, which you don't understand. Muslims have programmed their time with prayers. So Fajr is Fajr time. When you wake up, you have your breakfast. Of course, that's normal. But Dhuhr is first and the lunch is after in most Muslim families. So if Dhuhr prayer is at 12 o'clock, it should be that they will eat straight after, which is what most families would do. But usually it's after Dhuhr they have lunch. And after Isha they have dinner.
It should be after Maghrib, really.
No, but it depends on the time. If it's winter, you can't be having dinner at 4:30 or 4 o'clock. So usually Isha moves. So most families would have their dinner around 10 o'clock because Isha was at 9:30. And that cultural thing that they have got from their background and the idea that it should be after dinner in itself is a cultural thing, by the way. It's nothing to do with the religion itself. You've culturally developed it. And it may work in a hot country. For example, in Spain, people eat dinner at 10 o'clock. Yes, that's normal because the climate is very hot. It burns off whatever you eat, no problem. But in a cold country like Britain, eating late after 7:30 or 8 o'clock actually deposits all the fattiness within your system and it doesn't really digest, it doesn't break up. That's a problem. Eat on time, but forget that. That's your problem. But please don't impose it on children, especially if you're in extended families. So what we are saying together is, with extended families, please sit down and create boundaries, write them down and implement them, and don't break them. That's what we're saying.
And once you have boundaries, reinforce them. That's the more important part of it. Is once you know what you are doing, you stick to it because you are the one who can control.
Correct.
You have non-negotiables. Don't. So there's a don't here. Don't assume that your in-laws understand how you feel. They may not have a clue. Similarly, don't take their comments and reactions personally. You may not understand them as they were intended.
Romana has preempted that today's generation of people get offended too easily. Go on. You might expand on this with that particular comment.
I am very guilty of this one because I used to get really offended by, your family talking Bengali when I was sitting, and I still do actually feel sometimes that, there are, in our family, we have one of my brother-in-law is not Bengali. Myself not Bengali, so when we are sitting around, it's quite strange.
But don't get too offended too quickly. But the bottom line is, why assume that somebody is intending insult or is backbiting or slandering you? They're just talking. Let them be.
No, that's fine. I understand that point of it, but there's also hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that don't make people feel excluded. When you are sitting together, there's an idea of inclusion.
You're assuming everyone understands and accepts hadith in the same way as you do.
No, but I didn't. I was growing up with this without knowing this hadith.
I understand.
Even as a non-Muslim,
I understand.
In my culture, it's almost an etiquette that we don't talk under our breath. We don't whisper to each other. We don't. No, honestly,
But no, I want to challenge you. When your Hungarian friends come here, you instantly move to Hungarian, even if I'm around. You don't think about me. I don't have a problem. By the way, I don't have a problem with that.
No, but you're not sitting with us. It's very different.
I am sitting with you, and I'm listening to you guys conversing. I don't have wallahi, I have no problem. You carry on. The reason why I don't feel as offended as you do is because I know it's your natural default position. It's not a problem for me. If you want to talk about me, you will come to me. I know that. That assumption that I make about you or everybody else around, if they want to talk about me, they will come to me. If they don't talk about me, or if they talk about me what I don't want to understand, then I should not understand. Alhamdulillah, let them. That's how I look at it, right? So that's why I don't get offended. But the point that you raised about don't assume, do you want to expand on that a bit more?
So don't assume that people understand how you feel.
Yes.
Nobody understands how we feel unless we articulate how we feel. Sometimes we don't understand how we feel. Sometimes we have to talk through to understand what the real feeling is. And I want to bring something really interesting here for all of us to think about, is that to understand our own emotions is not an easy thing to do. When we ask somebody how you feel or how are you, the first thing we do, I'm fine. These are the word fine expresses everything. The frustration, the happiness, the joy, everything. We have a very rich emotional vocabulary, over 400 words, just to talk about emotions. Actually, I have a really interesting book which I will probably bring if I can. It's to grab an emotion for ourselves is a really hard thing to do. So understanding ourselves, if that's hard, imagine how hard it is for somebody else. And with couple situations, what people think is, oh, I know how you feel. Well, actually, probably you don't. Oh, I can read your mind. No, you can't, because I can't read my own. So assumptions come from a vague and unclear understanding of our own emotions and how the other person, and then we just project that assumption to somebody else. So understanding emotions is, so if you think about emotions, emotion is energy in motion. Anger will come and it will go. Happiness will come, joy will come, frustration will come. How do we know that it's an emotion? Is we give a label to it. So our mind, it gets to the brain and we think about this, oh, I am angry. And look at the difference. The minute you identify the emotion, you are more conscious, and now you know what you're dealing with. But what we do is we just flare up, emotions come and go, and we literally go through the day in a state of ghafla, which is we are not even present of what we are doing.
Yeah.
We just keep going, and we are assuming things more than feeling things. And we have to put out the torch on ourselves. Okay, in this scenario, how do I feel? And how do I express how I feel? Because you have to give it a label. In your brain, the emotion doesn't have a place unless you give it a name.
Amazing. Very beautifully put. So, ladies and gentlemen, Don't let your emotion run away, or don't you run away with your emotion, in other words. Keep control of it, and don't assume about other people that they understand your emotion. Just express it. Say, I feel like this, and let people understand your feeling. You don't have to be a drama king or a queen to get your emotions understood. You don't have to break a plate for your husband or your wife to take notice. You don't have to go into your room and lock up like a child, huffing and puffing. You don't have to be like a child in the playground causing a big baby tantrum. No, none of that. Speak. Speak. Remember what Allah has given you, a very beautiful mouth. Speak with it. Express your emotions. Identify and talk about it. Let's go to the next one. By the way, we've been talking a lot and we've not been engaging with you a little bit. Come on, share with us your thoughts. How have you found your relationship with your in-laws? How have you coped? About assumptions, about sensitivities, about feelings. Come on, write your thoughts here. Love to hear. Somebody has written, I love this name, From the Woods.
Yeah, I love it too. Assalamu alaikum from the woods. Assalamu alaikum from here, from London.
From the city.
From the city.
Rumana Ahmed says, majority
Yes.
arguments take place in a large social gathering. I think people get a bit cozy and relaxed and feel they're allowed to say whatever they like without thinking about the feeling of the others. It's called banter. You know, banter, I call that insults. Banter becomes insults. Do you know why? Banter can become insults when it's unfettered, when it is uncontrolled, when it is not measured. Where does banter end and insult begin? That's the problem with the modern world's banter. Stop bantering. I'm so sorry, I don't mean to be rude. If you want to banter, it should be positive banter. It should be praiseworthy banter. It should not be underhanded, sly comments, sarcastic comments. That's not banter, that's insults. You're packaging the insult with some cushion and some sweetener. I'm really sorry, it lands as an insult on the other person.
It's like jokes, you know, when people start joking, and we talked about it a little bit, that, you know, I don't think there's such thing as a joke if it's intended to give
A
something
message.
other than a joke, really.
But that in itself could also come from your hypersensitive self. You could be interpreting a joke and the person's intention behind that joke by your sensitivity, but that person may not intend it.
Yeah, it could be a wrong match, of course, but this is where couples, even with banters with the couples, between couples, it can work. You set up a scenario and the dynamics, what is allowed and what you feel comfortable and what is not.
Do you remember when my brother had
Oh no, don't bring that up,
my,
please.
my brother had a good joke on you?
Oh, on an Eid day, we had this. Is it what you're referring to?
Yeah, the bread roll.
Oh my gosh,
So-
that was a terrible
So
thing.
we were all exchanging gifts, etc. My brother decided to give you a bread as a gift.
Yeah, in which he hid some money
£50.
for me to buy a pair of roller skates, because we have this thing and we pull each other's name and then we give the gift of what we are asking for. And I asked for the roller skates. And
So when you looked at the bread, what came through your mind? What went through your mind when you
well,
got...
I tell you why I was so offended. Everybody was sitting around, the entire extended family, 6 brother and sister-in-laws with their families sitting around on Eid day. And I'm there opening my Eid gift, and I open it and there's a bread, and my mother-in-law is laughing, my sister-in-law is the entire family was rolling on the ground, and I was standing there like, why am I the laughing stock of everybody? Why? And then of course they start, oh, because you are a bubby and we can do anything to you because bubbies are like that. That's the role of a bubby. I was so offended that I chucked it on the floor and I went
You
upstairs.
chucked the bread in the bin.
Did I?
Yeah, you
Oh, I
took it
can't
outside
remember.
and threw it in the bin. And then
With the money in it.
with the money in it. And my brother jumped up and said, where is the bread? As it is in the bin. He went and got it and took out the £50 and came and gave you the £50 and said to you, inside the £50, inside the bread there was £50. But you got very sensitive about it.
I tell you what, now we talked about this before. I don't think I would have got that offended if the family was not laughing around me. I don't like being ridiculed.
I see.
When
So
I was
you
a
took
kid,
you took their laughter as a ridicule, where their laughter
Yes.
was an amusement.
yeah, it wasn't a gesture of the bread. It was the setup that everyone else was rolling by the time I got to my gift, because obviously I'm
So he should have briefed us before.
No, he shouldn't have said anything so that people don't know what it is and they don't laugh.
No. You only saw we only laughed when you opened up the parcel. I still remember, and then we all laughed. But he should have briefed us all, saying, "Guys, I'm going to do a prank on my sister-in-law. There's going to be money inside. There's going to be a bread. Please don't laugh." That's sort of what he should have done. So it would have been better received. Is that what you're saying?
It was the worst Eid of my life. I'm telling you, it was just terrible.
Salma Rahman says,
Salma
"I've seen
Rahman.
too much bantering in our Bengali culture.
You see, there is something
Since
about Bengali
since
culture.
a little child, I've never understood rudeness as banter." You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Salma. I thought it was just me. Like, did it?
But that was not rude.
What was that? That was rude.
Rudeness not in the bread, rudeness in the way they laughed at you.
Yes.
So it's not the bread, it's you felt mocked at.
Yes.
I understand that, but it's not rudeness. People are laughing not at your expense.
That they were.
No, they were laughing at the bread.
No, they were laughing that I'm standing there with a piece of bread.
No, they were thinking, why is she getting so upset? Open the bread and see what's inside.
Yeah, so why laugh about this?
Okay,
Just
fair
ask
enough.
me why I'm getting upset instead of laughing.
We're having a good
Anyway,
laugh
thank
over
you,
it.
Sama, for saying
But
this.
being
Yes.
negative, being rude is not a banter. It's not a banter at all. Truly, it's true. 100% true, because sarcasm in the Quran has been prohibited, by the way. Allah says in the Quran, don't be sarcastic with one another in Surah Hujurat. There is a reason why. Because your sarcasm may land in the other person as a deep insult. A deep insult. Anyway, let's move on.
Yours.
Do. Think about what will work best for you and your partner before you try to please your partner's families. In other words, if you go to your parents-in-law and make an agreement without having consulted your wife or your husband, you have made a big mistake. You should consult your wife or your husband first before you go and present your case or your thoughts or your ideas to your parents-in-law or even your parents, especially if it's going to be impacting on your spouse's life. An example, you're going to be moving house.
I should think, sorry sister, but I wouldn't mind being laughed at for £50. I wish I knew there was a £50 in it.
That's what the point is.
That's a really good one, thank you. But I didn't know there was money in it, so all I saw is a piece of bread, which actually he baked, I think.
Yeah,
my brother,
baked,
he baked the bread. So
there was
but
a
I didn't see the money.
huge gesture of love.
There was a lot of effort put into
And
it.
love. He gave you a piece of bread that he baked. He thought you, coming from a Christian background, would understand the value of bread. Jesus gave bread.
Tearing bread together.
He understood that in his head. He spoke to me about it. I put money in it because that's the Bengali culture in him. Put money in it. But you, of course, got offended. But so we're talking about, so for example, I was giving an example. You want to move home and you've decided with your in-laws that you're going to move the house, or you're going to buy a house near their house without consulting your wife. What if your wife doesn't want to live next to her parents' house? What if there is a trauma in that village where she had lived, or her house, or in that particular city or area that she had lived in, she doesn't want to visit that again? You could be intending the right thing. So basic bottom line approach is consult your wife or your husband first before you go and present a case or a situation to your in-laws and make an agreement.
You see, we are talking about extended families. An extended family scenario, I can see a lot of people are laughing at my story about the bread.
I love it. That's a lovely humor.
So we are talking about extended family scenario. Your extended family is not going to work if your marriage doesn't work. For me, that's the bottom line.
You know, I'm just thinking one of your friends is going to do the same joke with you very soon, because if they're watching, what if they give you a bread next time?
I will know. So extended families are not going to work unless your marriage works. This is the bottom line for me. If your dynamics between your husband and a wife is not strong, if it's not stable, if your relationship is on wobbly knees and you don't quite know how to manage each other, you will never be able to manage the extra added dynamics of an extended family, whether you live together or not. But you have to focus and fix, I call it clear the basement and fix the foundation, because that's your baseline. And from there you are available, you are helpful, you are supportive, because you feel supported within your home.
You know what you just said? Clear your basement and strengthening your basement. If you have a good, strong foundation, on it, you can have 500 extended families living, if the foundation was right. In our cases, we load the house with so many extended families, but our foundation is weak.
That's right.
That's where we crumble. That's the bottom line. Remember that. It's nothing wrong if you can create a space where extended families can live. You know, people in poorest parts of the world, they share a hut several generations and they manage. How they manage is by having a solid foundation for their family. So our recommendation is build your foundation of a family, create that safe space, speak openly and honestly, don't create rules that doesn't work, agree on parameters, boundaries, etc. Make your foundation solid, then you can have as many extended families on top as it's your choice if it works. Let's go to the next one.
The next one is don't ignore your partner when you are with your family. You can talk to them, but make sure you involve your spouse in the conversation. We just talked about this.
Correct.
So if your choice, for example, when I'm talking to my mother in my language, if your choice is not to participate, I will know, you will let me know, and I know I don't need to translate. If there's something important that we are talking that is going to be involving you or it's affecting you in some ways. For example, if my mother decides she's unwell, I need to go over and need to look after her and I need to move to her house physically. Obviously, the family, our whole family will be involved and affected. So I need to have a discussion where you are present and we create something that works for everyone. Same with your family. If and one of the things that I believe that really helped me to understand this is that while I find it I would probably find it very, very difficult to live in an extended family in the same house, I still feel that by introducing what we did a couple of years ago, we introduced once a month, our house is open and your family comes over for lunch or for dinner, whoever is available, the house is open for that day. So we will come, we will connect. And I really started missing those lunches now because we haven't done it since the lockdown started. And we still have it in our diaries. And my sister-in-law just called me the other day, it just popped up, we were supposed to be coming for this. And because it was usually the end of the month, and it was Saturday or Sunday, and we would meet up, we would share what's going on with our lives, because it's important to you. And our foundation felt strong and safe. I was happy to do it. So it's something that you need to think about. How do you involve your partner in the decisions that you make?
Yep, indeed. There's a point Salma Rahman has made. I found segregation a problem, knowing boundaries between brother-in-law and sister-in-laws. You know what? This is a major problem in our society. This is where the incestuous relationship starts happening. This is where boundaries are broken. In Islam, remember this, there is no forced segregation in Islam. Some of you may not like what I'm going to say, so listen to it carefully before you start jumping around with conclusions. Rasulullah did not enforce or force man and woman to separate from a public space. He didn't. It is a myth. It is more cultural, more driven by some of our Asian and Arab cultures rather than Islam. Prophet ﷺ never forced in public space, and remember, in public space, a segregated environment. He never did. He allowed the man and the woman of his society to encounter and interact with one another in a healthy, halal, non-sexualized environment. That's what he taught, and that's what his companions practiced. The idea that man took a different road and a woman took a different road, man lived in a different city and woman lived in a different city, man had a different mosque and woman had a different mosque, is a complete myth and utter nonsense. In the Prophet's mosque, woman used to pray in the same mosque and sit at the back, and man used to pray at the front, and they all used to interact with the Prophet of Allah ﷺ openly, and they all had same access. Women were not pushed into a broom cupboard miles away from the mosque. That's a complete and utter un-Islamic practice as far as I'm concerned. So that's the foundation. In your family setting, a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law is not a mahram for you. You can get married to them. So interacting with them without boundaries is haram. It's not allowed. You need to interact with them with some boundaries. What's the boundary? No conversation should become personal. No conversation should become flirtatious. No conversation should become sexual. No conversation should jeopardize the intimacy between the husband and the wife, the original pair. Nobody else should threaten it. And that's why in the Asian setting, in Bangladeshi setting, when this bhabi culture is a destructive culture, you should respect your bhabi to be the wife of your brother, or your brother-in-law to be the husband of your sister. Respect it. Don't overstep the mark. When you overstep the mark and it becomes a sexual relationship, it causes havoc in every way possible. So that sister's point is very true, and I see it happening in our community. In the name of bantering with bhabi, people often sin. In the ideas of bantering with my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, sin. Please don't do that, because you can't escape the sexual element that can cause the biggest trouble. Would you like your sister to break up her marriage because you were flirting with her husband? Would you like your brother to divorce his wife because you as a younger brother was flirting with his wife? Would you like that? That's a disgusting thing to do. Why would you do that in the first place? That's why that boundary is very important, and I want to mention it again. Please maintain that boundary. If you don't, you open up the doors for shaitan. I'm sorry, I'm being very strong here, but it has to be said, and is experienced left, right, and center. The number of cases I get, Hannah, of this kind of breach is a staggering number.
I can imagine.
Anyway, let's go to the next one.
Mubin, thank you, Mubin. Salams, really enjoying this session and the insights. Just like for normalizing human emotions, especially difficult navigating two different cultures. I can relate so much to you, and indeed, a lot of effort needs to be made to create understanding. And thank you for sharing the Eid story. Now it's out in the open, so me and Eid and bread and the 50 pounds in it.
Will stay.
It will probably stay, but thank you for being with us. Yes, Sama is saying, I think it's a haya when I mean by segregation, very important, because when you are living together, brother and sister-in-laws, the sister-in-law wants to cover, there are boundaries, there are issues that, you know, you have to talk about this, because I know cases where women are living in a house, same household, where there are brother-in-laws, and the brother-in-law just openly goes to the room without knocking. The sister is standing there, the sister-in-law is standing there. Suddenly her privacy has been completely shattered, invaded. You know, it just opens up a lot of things, but it's all down to some baseline conversations.
So, number one, knock on the door before you enter any room in the house with adults. It's in the Quran. Knock once, knock twice, knock 3 times, and if the third knock there is no response, Allah says in the Quran, get lost, walk away.
In fact, teach your children. When our children were growing up, when they were about 4 or 5, we started teaching them about knocking. Until then, we needed to be available, because at night they needed us so they could come to our bed or
But
whatever.
they would always knock.
But they were taught knock. If the door is closed, if the door is open, you are free to come. If the door is closed, knock first, second, third time. If there is no response, then you just walk away.
Unless you are afraid that we may have had a heart attack and died, that's a different discussion. But you know, in an adult space, so Allah says in the Quran, any adult space, if the door is locked, knock. Rasulullah used to stand outside Fatima's house, his daughter's house, and knock. Allahu Akbar. Prophet of Allah is to knock and wait for Fatima to respond. And if Fatima did not respond, Prophet used to walk away without disturbing ever. Now, if our Prophet of Allah did that, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are that you don't need to knock on the doors? Knock on your children's door if they're adults. Knock on your parents' door, especially if you are an adult. Knock on your brother's doors, sisters-in-laws, brother-in-law's doors. Knock, number one. Number two, when you are interacting with one another, especially your brother-in-law and sister-in-law, don't make it physical. Don't touch them. Don't hug them. Don't hold their hands. This is not from Islam. This opens up the inappropriate touching problem. Remember the whole saga of inappropriate touching? It all comes from this innocent banter. There is no innocent banter in this. While your intention may be clear, what about the other person's intention? You don't know. So I say to you, don't make it physical. That's number 2. And number 3, don't make it sexual, please. Don't make it sexual. If you have sexual urges, walk away. Allah says that in the Quran. If your eyes become lustful, lower it. Not literally lower it and stand there and banter still.
Stare at the ankle
or the feet or the legs. No, walk away is the advice. Walk away until you have calmed down. So that banter needs to be very clear in extended space, in family space. Whoa. So knock on the door, don't touch, don't sexualize. 3 very simple rules. Is that fair?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just look at how many conversations you probably have missed if you are living in an extended family scenario, or when you get together, what are some of the rules? I grew up in a household where my father was an extremely generous man, but he had this side to him which allowed anyone and everyone. Our house was an open house. So our door was open all the time. And sometimes I was in the house by myself. I remember 12, 13 years old. And suddenly one of his friends just walks through and starts looking for something in our house. So I felt, literally threatened and very unsafe in my own house, because my father didn't put boundaries down. The doors were not closed. Even though he knew I was in the house by myself, he went to work or he was doing whatever in the garden, his friends used to come to the house, and I was standing there thinking, what are these people doing? Or my mom's friends continuously, we were en route to the workplace because we lived outside of the village center. So anyone who was going to work around the village center, they always popped up in our house because we were a popular family. Everybody knew my parents. But my house was literally, our house was an open door. And I made a decision at that time that I will never do that.
You know what happened with Rasulullah? The same thing happened. The companions found his house to be open door. And Allah revealed the Quran. Let them, the whole idea of hujurat is enclosure.
Right.
When the curtain is down, don't go beyond it. When the door is locked, don't knock on it. Leave them alone. Prophet of Allah needs his own time. We all need our own time. Yes, we want to be generous and open our door. But opening our door does not mean it's a free for all. Walk in anytime you like, invade my privacy, and make my family feel insecure or unsafe, especially children. Let's move on. Mubin says something. P.S. Love how coordinated you both are, mashallah. Allah bless you. You have set a very high bar for us.
Sorry, you're so kind. I was telling my husband, I think we're a bit too white. And he said, no, it's his or hers today. So we
are very white.
His or hers white.
Oh, actually, he's not talking about coordinating in the sense of our clothes only. I think he's talking about everything that we are coordinating.
Thank you.
Our
Even more.
Conversations, and I think so. That's how I look at it. It seems interesting how we read the same message differently.
I know.
You read it as clothes. I read it as our conversations because I'm feeling very synced in our conversation. That's what
Alhamdulillah.
I hope so. Uddin says agreed. And he also says
there's more discipline here in the UK on this issue. Yes.
Of course, because you can close your doors. In the Bangladeshi culture, Bangladeshi countries.
How many people are just coming and going without knocking, without just dropping in, 6-7 people coming, just pop in for tea and they're okay, I need to go somewhere, but they get offended. So, all these things, boundaries, really important. Again, I want to stress that boundaries are not overstep because people are bad people. If someone wants to come, and remember, guests, they bring the blessings.
They're welcome.
We know this.
But
there are boundary issues here.
If I'm a guest coming and knocking on your door, I'm welcome, I'm bringing blessings, of course. But it could be a curse for you because you're not ready for me.
Yeah.
So if I come, I need to send notification. I need to tell you.
Or I need to call you. I'm coming in 10
Modern
minutes.
world. You don't have to send me a horse or a dove to come over. You just need to send me a text message saying, I want to come. At the time of Rasulullah, Allah's Prophet said to the husbands, never enter your house at night without notifying your wife. Wait until you've notified your wife. This is a very beautiful. Now just think about it. Notifying your wife before you come back home that I'm coming at this hour and sticking to it. And if it's too late, not coming in because you may catch your wife unready, unprepared, unkempt even. It's not the nicest thing to do. So Rasulullah understood the sensitivities of our family. So he said, give notice first. And if you are going to be late, stay out.
Imam Ajmal still does this. Every time he's coming home and I know that he's been out for a couple of days, a couple of hours, he would call me and he said, I'm coming in half an hour. I'm coming in 10 minutes. I'm coming whatever time. So I can get myself ready for his arrival mentally and possibly physically as well, because sometimes I'm in my pajamas.
Yes. Well, either way, notification is very important because I find that very rude if somebody just turns up. Yes, you're welcome to turn up, but be ready not to be allowed in. Right? If you want to be allowed in all the time, then just give me a notice. Anyway, it's 11 o'clock and we have not even finished our program.
I know, it's already done. So I think we will...
Shama has just woken up. Salam, love and dua for you both. Shama, I'm not even talking to you anymore because you keep on sending messages and images of food. Your biryani, your halwa, your amazing food, and you have not even sent a single bite for me to eat and try. I'm not talking to Shama anymore.
You're not talking, okay.
No, I'm not talking to you, Shama. Listen, I'm not talking to you. I'm just joking with her. May Allah bless you, Shama, for your amazing work, all the inspiration. But I do want some food, so please send them to me and to my wife too. I don't know whether she wants it. Our program
food
is over.
for me anytime.
So our program is over. We'll continue with in-laws and extended families.
Yes, I think we will continue the conversation. And so before we go, don't forget to
I'm going to hide my face today. Please buy this book, not my face. The book is called 10 Steps You Should Take, or 10 Steps to Getting and Staying Married. This book covers a lot, not just about marriage, but also about in-laws. It's available on our website, barefootinstitute.com/bookstore. Please do buy this book and give it away to your friends and your families as much as you can. And my wife's book.
And you can also buy my book, which is Heart Smart. It's my journey from my head to my heart. It's all packed with neuroscience and my travelogue and my anecdotes. The bread story is not in it, unfortunately, but it will be in another book, hopefully. So both of them you can do. You can find on our website. And there's another thing that you can do for us. If you can ask for a favor, share the video with anyone that you feel that would benefit from this. Invite your friends and families to come and join us in a conversation, because we do this work so that our community can thrive and we can have more positive conversation about relationships.
And if you're suffering in your marriage, in your relationship, we have counseling and coaching that we offer. We do training, etc., etc. Do join us. Of course, you can email us at info@barefootinstitute.com and we will respond to you. We can set up a session for you, etc., etc. We've got so much to do and so much to learn together, brothers and sisters. And if you've got a family that wants to learn basics of Islam, ethics of Islam, I will do my family session this evening at 6 o'clock on my Facebook and on my YouTube channels. If you would like to join, you can do at 6 o'clock on those platforms, inshallah. Well, it's time to go.
Time to go. I want to respond to Mubin. Can we have a topic on healthy boundaries? Yes, I also do my own sessions, conversations with your soul, which I will do this week, coming week, and I will let you know. I actually had boundaries on my list, so I might just pick it up this week and do something about boundaries.
Shama is laughing at me instead of sending me food.
I know.
Shama, you're laughing at me, woman. That's not good, is it?
But once we start traveling, we will get in the car and get to her house.
That's in Manchester. It's too far for me.
Oh, you're giving her too much information.
Isn't she over there?
Yeah, but you're giving her too much information.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm sure Shama doesn't mind. Take care of yourselves, brothers and sisters. Until next Sunday from myself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.